Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, I'm going to show you how Isildur is doing when being played in Arnor with Rangers of the North. Is it viable? Is it not? Let's find out. So gear-wise, I am equipping the Gigantic Hammer with Rend, the Hauberk with Fire Protection just to be safe against Witch Kings, and then Cask of Submerged Isle with Aegis, but sometimes I go back and forth between the Bone Mask with Hysteria and this helmet. It really depends against what we are fighting. And then I have a Night Star. There is a reason why I have equipped this, because right now I have access to Rangers of the North and I play Tactics Evolved. In Tactics Evolved, Rangers of the North have a very special effect that synergizes with healing. But we will come back to that later. But before we jump over to the battle reports, this is the build. Like, it is pretty much the meta build which I already introduced you in the Isildur guide. We have some early round madness going on, some damage mitigation and damage buff for our army, and then also follow up for our Rangers of the North and Dunedains. Now this is interesting because up until now we tried this out in his melee build for his Rangers and Dunedains. Right now we are trying this out for his ranged army, like Dunedains, Rangers of the North, and then one Elven ranged unit. It could be Bow Knights or Sentinels. And then of course 1 point here just to have the +2 attack for your man units, and even more damage mitigation with his Respect 5 title maxed out. But you guys already know this build. Let's find out how viable Isildur is in Arnor with Rangers of the North. And here we are in the battle reports. We are fighting against one of our community members, Jusu. I hope I pronounced your name right. Thank you for volunteering for this fight. It was kinda interesting to find out what's going on over here. Alright, it's time to explain what's going on. Isildur has this gear, just as I introduced at the start, but I am using the Bone Mask with Hysteria. There is a reason for it. I like the plus HP and also the Hysteria proccing every other round, so we get more value out of our, what was it? Enfeeble. Plus 40% increased damage against the target subject to madness. So it would be nice in general because Khaldoons don't tend to run something that is providing madness immunity, but in this case Jusu was having the Harad Cask with Evilman Overlord. If you further refine it, is kinda a hardcore counter against our Hysteria. Good move there, but let's look further into it. Our units have, like my Sentinels have Dispersion, that is kind of a must-have. My Rangers of the North have Haven, and this is why I equipped the Night Star with the healing effect Rare Reinforcement. I wanted to trigger this effect on every round. Do you know what that means? It means starting on round 1, we get minus 15% damage received for Rangers of the North, and this is lasting for 2 rounds and can stack 2 times. That means on round 2, we will have minus 30% damage received. So our Rangers of the North get even bulkier. Unfortunately, on round 3, this special effect resets. That means we trigger it again. So it is 15%, and then round 4, 30%. And then this process just repeats. 15%, 30%, and so on. But still, this is good damage mitigation. And our army, like consisting of Dunedains and Rangers of the North, is quite nice. So we have 2 units that provide follow-up, but then we also have 1 Elven unit that is kinda defenseless. And for that case, we have our Rangers of the North. They protect them with Protector of the North. Not just only they themselves become bulkier with plus 20 defense, they protect the ranged units, and they become even more bulky whenever they don't fight on structure land. So we have a very bulky T4 unit, and it's just insane how Tactic Evolves is making them so strong. With a certain item like Night Star and Rare Reinforcement, you make them very bulky. They have amazing stats, they deal a decent amount of damage, and then we just need some elemental damage coverage. It could be fire protection with the superior Hauberk, or if you are fighting against anything focus damage heavy like Sauron, or let's say Oathbreakers, Galadriel, then you will need the quilted armor with focus protection. So this is the only weakness I saw in them. Elemental damage, you need to cover it somehow, and then you're good to go. Alright, so 2 units with follow-up, lots of protection for our ranged units, and this is what we achieved against Khaldoon. Khaldoon is of course one of the strongest commanders in the game. Unfortunately, he had the Harad Cask with Evilman Overlord, and this is kinda killing us. And also, champions are very strong. He is mitigating the damage we could deal with challenge. His dragoons have rupture, and then his halberdiers have eradicate. So I can't complain, everything is maxed out, it is kind of crazy. And in the snapshot page we see that we have done around 160k damage versus almost 190k damage. You see our sentinels were protected a lot, our Rangers of the North almost got wiped out, and our last units, our Dunedains, have this special effect. It is traveling light, just to be safe against Morgul Arbalest whenever any Suninds are attacking us, and this would have been a nice counter against those units. Also, 100% chance to evade the first attack is always nice. But there is a way how we can achieve a better result against this. And this is also what I like about Isildur. Just by changing his gear and his build and troop comp, he is ready to go to counter any commander. So let me give you an example. To counter his helmet special effect, instead of the bone mask, we could have used the Aegis helmet. That way, we don't trigger his damage mitigation from his helmet. You could also have, instead of invested points into Consequence of Greed, we could have used Coalition and also the damage mitigation at Disrespect 5 title. So that way we deny him the damage mitigation of his helmet and also provide more max damage for Dunedain with Coalition, and also we get the first hit in, even against his fast champions. So they outspeed our sentinels, but with Coalition our elven units deal damage first before the special effect may cut their damage in half. So this is just a side note. You can build around the enemy commander with your Isildur. This is how versatile he is. But anyway, let's continue with the second report. Here we are fighting against the strong Grima player. Let's check out the gear. We have equipped the Aegis helmet. That makes sense because we want to deny the first madness proc of Grima landing on round 3. So we have kind of provided the protection against that. But what has happened over here? He has champions, and his champions have rise up. That means more damage for his army and Grima himself. And then he has Reapers with follow-up. This is very strong. And these guys are going to target our weakest units, being our sentinels. But since they get protected by our Rangers of the North, the damage is redirected towards them. And then he has mountain trolls with staggering blow. And this is kind of insane because I have nothing that is protecting me right now against staggering blow. In order to counter this army comp, first of all, I needed to include bow knights instead of sentinels, and then I needed to equip something that provides me pursuit. So instead of going with rare reinforcement, I should have used the tactical mark special effect, and then there's one more thing that is left. So since we have removed rare reinforcement, I needed to change Haven to the one special effect that provides damage mitigation against melee units. Minus 15% against every melee unit on each round. And I think that way we could have changed the outcome of this report. And I'm pointing this out because I believe that Isildur is kinda OP. He is versatile enough to change his build, his troop composition and gear to counter any commander in the game. I'm starting to believe, just like Sauron, he is that versatile, which is why I have to revisit my tier list and place him at the very top of my tier list. He truly is OP, guys, and I haven't even unlocked his Respect 10 item yet. Alright, let's check out the gear of Grima. He has a Cutlass with melee might, Scalemail with melee vigor, and Cask of Pride with melee suppression. So I can't complain. Walnut Smoking Pipe with sustain. It is a pretty much meta build Grima. And let's see what we have achieved in the snapshot page. Only 125k damage versus 285k damage. But keep in mind, by applying the changes I suggested, I think we can turn the tides here. He can take any commander in the game by changing his build, troop composition and gear. Here we are fighting a strong Mouth of Sauron player, so let's see what has happened over here. Isildur is now equipping the Bone Mask with Hysteria. That is kinda unfortunate because Mouth of Sauron is having like the same madness mechanics like Grima. He will make my army fall victim to madness on round 3. And unfortunately, I have nothing to cover that because of the bone mass. But we are still with Nightstar and rare reinforcement. Let's see what Mouth of Sauron has to offer. It is a Cutlass with Smite, Hauberk with Fire Protection, and then a Brutal Helmet with Melee Vigor, followed by Drums of Moria and Haste of Soldiers. This is the build he has. I am kinda very scared because of Enfeeble and Master of Mischief. This is what's going to hurt me a lot. I have no protection against it right now on round 3. It's going to hit us hard. Let's also check out what special effects his units are running, like the champions are equipping Rise Up, makes sense. And Reapers, of course, they have to go with Heartseeker because of the follow-up, and then Mountain Trolls with Solid Metal. Now, what would I do to turn the tides? I know he has Mountain Trolls. If I were to fight him again, I would use Bow Knights instead of Sentinels. And then, since I know that he has like Madness, I would go with Aegis instead of Hysteria. And then instead of giving our Dunedains the Traveling Light special effect, this right now doesn't make any sense for them in this fight. There aren't any Morgul Arbalests. I would choose Steadfastness. I think that was the special effect that is providing Cleanse on every round. So that would be nice. We can just remove the debuff of the champions, like the challenge debuff, to have even more damage with our Dunedains. And then we just have to see how this battle report would change. In the snapshot page we see we have done around 190k-ish damage versus around 280k damage. So this fight is a loss for us. We needed to adjust our build, troop composition and gear a bit more. And in the detailed view we see that our ranged units got wiped out completely. Only the Dunedains are remaining. Here is another fight against Mouth of Sauron, and in this case we aren't up against the champions. Instead he has Morgul Arbalests. And guess what? This is why the Dunedains are here. They are very strong in countering them. They also prioritize them because of Bullseye. So this is working in our favor. Gear-wise, we have the Bone Mask with Hysteria in this fight. And the Mouth of Sauron has this gear. Gigantic Hammer with Rend, Mithril Coat with Barrier, Bone Mask with Manipulate, and then Worn Out Smoking Pipe. And maybe if he had equipped a Bone Mask with Hysteria, he could have received more value out of his Enfeeble and could have turned the tides. But let's check out the special effects of his units. Follow up for the Reapers, and it is Staggering Blow for his Mountain Trolls. I do like that combination. And then Morgul Arbalest with Solid Metal. So, what do you think about this report? I think it is quite decent, and we were just lucky because he had Morgul Arbalest. But I'm still adamant with the point I'm trying to prove over here. Isildur can counter any commander in the game by adjusting his build, troop composition and so on. In a snapshot page we have done 240k damage versus 200k-ish damage. And in the detailed view we see that our Rangers of the North tried their best protecting the Sentinels, but this is as far as they go because Reapers in Tactics Evolved are very hardcore against units with low defensive stats. So the Reapers try to focus the Sentinels, but the damage got misdirected to our Rangers of the North, and this is why they got wiped out. And once they got decimated, the Reapers followed up on the Sentinel. This is also why our Dunedains were just standing there watching what was happening. They just followed up with their damage whenever they could against the Morgul Arbalests, and then focused against the Reapers. And here we have a Witch King fight, and every now and then you will have reports like these, especially when you equip a Hauberk with fire protection against a Witch King. So you see, we are very bulky against this army comp. The Witch King can't really survive this because he has no helmet that is making him immune against our round 1 madness. So there is a chance his alchemists attacking each other because of our early round madness. Even with Convener, like he can potentially Convener himself to death on round 1. This is the items he has: Reckoning with Might of Soldiers, Scale Mail with Melee Vigor, Berserker's Helm with Shock, Drums of Moria with Haste of Soldiers. So it is a pretty much meta build Witch King. But yeah, this is how strong Isildur is in this build. His Rangers are protecting his backline, and his backline is wailing against his units. This is the snapshot page. We have done almost 290k damage versus 75k damage. And in the detailed view, we see that our sentinels did the biggest chunk of our damage. In this Sunind fight, I was kind of surprised with what is going on over here, because I assumed that us having Dunedains will be a hardcore counter against her Morgul Arbalest. Gear-wise, we have changed back to the Aegis helmet. Okay. We have the rare reinforcement healing with the bulky Rangers of the North. I see. So far so good. And then Sunind has this gear with Gigantic Hammer, Giant's Power, Ranger Shroud with Resistance, Horseman's Helm with Resolve. I see. So our 14 points spent into the skills of his bottom respect 0 tree is kinda wasted. We can't get any value out of it because of Resolve. That is something we can counteract by changing our gear and build. So if I were to fight again against Sunind, instead of equipping like having these skills over here, Consequence of Greed and Enfeeble, I would just invest these points into Coalition and the damage mitigation. And then we should turn the tides over here. So let's check out the special effects of his champions. Rise Up, that is pretty much standard. Dragoons with Perseverance, I hope I pronounced that right. Not quite sure if this is the best installed special effect, but you let me know in the comment section below. I still need to look into these special effects for the Dragoons. And then Morgul Arbalest with Dispersion. Yeah, that makes sense. In this snapshot page, we see we have done almost 260k damage versus 265k damage. But keep in mind, with the few changes I suggested, you can change the outcome of this fight. In the detailed view, we see that our Rangers did their best in protecting the backline, which is why we achieved this number. It is kinda okay, there is still room for improvement. Here I am fighting against Sauron, and let's see what has happened. So right off the bat I can tell you that we are losing this fight because I didn't equip the focus protection. This is kinda killing us. Sauron is strong, but I am happy that we had the Aegis helmet. We are safe against Madness proc. And then of course tanky Rangers of the North with rare reinforcement. And let's also check out the gear of Sauron. He has a cover with Smite, Protection of Numenor with Resilience of Evil Man, Ancient Numenorian Helm with Tranquility. This is one of the best helmets in the game, especially for Sauron. He can just remove debuffs every 3 rounds, starting with round 1. And guess what? When we cast Madness against him, he can just remove it with Tranquility. So this is hardcore countering our 7 points spent into first round Madness. And since this Sauron has Tranquility, he is countering our Consequence of Greed. Like 7 points spent into this is for nothing. Let's just remove it, reinvest into Coalition. And since we have removed Consequence of Greed, there is no reason to have Enfeeble. So just reinvest these points into the skills at his respect 5 title, like Coalition and the one with damage mitigation. I like to have Enfeeble whenever I have Consequence of Greed, but whenever I can't get any value out of this, I just remove these points and reinvest them somewhere else. But you may keep Enfeeble whenever you are good to continue with Bone Musk and Hysteria. The Hysteria proc will give you every other round increased damage because of Enfeeble. But what I'm trying to say is we can have better results just by adjusting again our build, items and troop composition. And I was lucky enough to give you some proof because we had one more fight against Sauron. But before I show you the second fight against Sauron, let's just quickly go over the troops, see what special effects they have. Corsairs with Traveling Light, and then Dragoons with Rupture, and also Halberdiers with Eradicate. The build of Sauron is the hybrid build as I see. He has Madness procs as well as lots of focused damage. So I kinda need to protect myself with a Quilted Armor against all of this damage you see here. And also I need to stay safe against his Ring of Terror Madness proc. And we can provide that with Aegis. In the snapshot page we see we have done around 240k damage versus 285k damage. So we have lost this fight and we see that our Sentinels did a fair amount of damage. But it wasn't enough. In this fight though, it was enough. Let's see why. I am equipping the Aegis. That means I counter Sauron's Madness build. I have my Madness build over here with Consequence of Greed and Enfeeble. And then this Sauron fortunately didn't have the tranquility effect, which is why we could achieve this result. Like he too is running the hybrid build, kinda nice, very universal, and as Sauron has these units with Eradicate for his Halberdiers, half trolls with significant assault, and then champions with divide and conquer instead of rise up. But this is as far as we go, guys. I wish I could have shown you better reports, and when I say better, I mean like I would like to have the exact same opponents just so we can have more steady reports, same build, same troop composition, same gear, and then that way I could have shown you how we can fix the outcome of the fights if we were to adapt to this situation. But I don't have that luxury. I could have that luxury if you guys reach out to me and say, Azra, you know what, I want to volunteer for those reports, and then we can have more reliable comparisons. And I would really appreciate it if every now and then somebody reaches out to me just to have better research for our battle reports. And that being said, I see you guys next time.